live. Peace. Let's do this again. Peace and greetings, everyone. We are live. Welcome to Anu Life Global Ministries, our Friday evening Anu Fellowship. If you are in the space and you can hear me, just let me know. Give me a one or a two. You know how we do. um, yeah, it is always a blessing to be able to build and connect and build bonds with you all. And so this is a space to do it. One of the spaces, right? One of those spaces that I we all enjoy just connecting and building. Greetings, Master Menelek. Um, Great. We are loud and clear, and I'm glad that we're loud and clear because the last time, but this time, it's good. It's good. So today I thought that we would, build a little bit on boundless form. However, what I realize is our anu our anu evening builds have morphed into, we moved away from Shima just for now, but it has morphed into a bit of a communal gathering where, we share what's happening on what has happened during the strong, and we recap a lot. I think we do a lot of recapping of some of the information that we have shared or built on throughout the strong and some of the food that has been given to us. And so this is the space for that. So before we begin, chatting and sharing and building, I wanted to open the space with a quick psalm. That's I'm pulling from Psalm 24. The earth is the Most High's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Most High, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive the blessing from the Most High, the righteousness from the Most High of his salvation. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Yaakov, Selah. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of the glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? The Most High, strong and mighty, the Most High, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even lift them up, O ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? The Most High of hosts, he is the King of glory. So I thought that I would open up by just sharing this and saying that I give honor and reverence to the Most High Yah for bringing us forward, bringing us all here through the strong, regardless of what our experiences were. We are all here in the space to build and just share, So we give thanks for those of you who are in the chat and coming on in to share and build and fellowship with us. I give thanks for Chief Yuya and his, continuous guidance and accuracy when it comes to, knowing what it is that our community needs, knowing what it is that the movement needs, and how to develop and move us all through so that we, transformation occurs. And when transformation occurs, we can also move our community along and develop it and grow it even more. So I give thanks for that. I am gonna jump into the chat and just greet everyone. I see Sister Yafe has joined us. Greetings. Top tier speakers has joined us as well. Meek, peace. Imanaya is also here, and Safta. Greetings, Safta Arlene Adams. Safta Ahava. How are you? How are you? Okay, so before we jump in though, how has the strong been for you? This strong. I know we've had our last midday affirmative. We ended on the note of the mantra, a really important mantra, I think, with a focus on purpose and righteous purpose being rooted in community. So I wanted to find out how has that this strong gone as you reflected on and incorporated this focus on divine, this purpose driven vision, right? And purpose driven lifestyle and perspective. How has that been for you? What have you noticed about yourself as like you begin to focus and zoom in on, again, being hardwired for purpose and what your purpose even is, and how maybe if it's, is it manifesting? Is it coming forward in all of the choices that you make and the things that you choose to do with your life and your journey? And when I say manifest, I'm really speaking about what it is that you are doing, to bring that forward, to ensure that, yeah, that purpose that you have been hardwired for is coming forward, you know, regardless of what's there, regardless of what may seem like deterrence or uh, roadblocks and things of the sort. So just jump in the chat and share and let me know. Like I would say, I've been thinking about and watching how the the value of our names and how our name charges us to function and what our names charges us to be and do, and how that's directly connected to even purpose. And, recently I started back teaching. So as an educator, I find great I find great joy in being able to work with youth and you know see just see how the light kind of shifts within them when they receive knowledge. And I'm not even talking about from a space of me as a teacher giving them or sharing anything with them. It's from a space of seeing them as students or as learners unravel knowledge, right? Or discovering knowledge. And yeah, I would say this strong, I had to think very long and hard about how that teaching aspect is directly tied to my purpose, right? And how my name actually helps to underscore that as well too. So they're just I think teaching, getting back into teaching kind of put me in that space where like, sometimes we overlook what we think our purpose is. And we may think, and she's has spoken that to this too, like we may think it is simple or small and even insignificant, but I think the most value or the most valuable thing is really about seeing what it is that your skills and attributes and talents are and how those help to feed your that purpose. Very important. But I want to hear from you all, right? I want to hear from you all. How has your strong been? Were you able to reflect on purpose even more throughout the strong? Did you find that maybe if you were unsure of your purpose, were you able to, like reflect on it and be able to pull it out or draw it out from your experiences? Just jump on in the chat and share what your strong was like and, how it related to purpose, if any at all. If any at all. Give me 1 second. I have to, I have, um, I have my laptop in front of me is just, it keeps giving me this very strange, there we go. Sorry. Okay, So let's jump right into boundless form. So when we think about, I thought of sharing today on boundless form because I noticed a thread. I'm always, like I always find, based on what our midday affirmative focuses on, along with some of the conversations and the bills that we have during the strong, along with all the other forms of and dialogue and community conversation that we have, there's always a thread, an ongoing thread. And so one of the threads I noticed was, the idea of purpose being directly connected to some of the themes of transformation that we saw Ima Yakira Eden underline from Maleficent, right? So there's this ongoing focus on and seamless, I think seamless connection between purpose and purpose function and transformation. Transformation is very important. And so when I considered boundless potential, it took me back to the 14 keys, right? And it took me back to the 14 keys because there's an example in there. The example reads, during sexual intercourse, the male holds seeds of light within him that possess boundless potential. And yes, within sperm is actual light. This is liquid light. And so when I consider boundless form, I consider that even us as beings, we are, you know, as some biblical references say, we are, you know, um, we are made in the image and likeness of the Most High. Even though we will die like men, I will not forget that piece at all. Even though we will die like men, we're made in the image and likeness of the Most High. And for a man to possess that boundless potential, I keep, I always go back to, if man possesses that boundless potential with him in that form, and that's only one form, there may be more, right? There may be more. I have to consider, well, what boundless form did that potential come from, right? And maybe it wasn't a form, but that was the idea. The idea is on boundless form is actually considering how and what we draw upon that is beyond what is our potential now, right? And I think we've been going back to consistently going back to this idea of celestial ember and what makes up our core being, right? Because we see each other in this physical form, but there is a greater purpose. There is a greater, there's a greater how should I say, energy and form that's actually, I don't want to say spitting out, but projecting and creating us as Anu, or us as people, whether you're, Anu or not. And so our muscles have this immense amount of potential, boundless potential. Our connective tissue, our brain has this amount of potential. And some of that we spoke on even in our last midday affirmative, last Yom Rishon. So always, I think the conversation is really important to always go back to, well, what is feeding this current experience that you're having, this human form? It's something greater than what we see here physically. And I think it's always important to think about that, and not just think it, but act on it, right? And function off of that. Because sometimes even in fulfilling purpose, we may pause or pull back, or find that some of the experiences that we are having challenge us so much to the point where we doubt that we have the capacity to fulfill or to do or to develop or to grow or to change or even transform, or even the courage, even the courage to, like I consider last night's conversation around the phoenix, even the courage to understand that there's a sacrifice that even one has to make, and that will literally burn and obliterate a part of you, giving rise to another form or another part of us that's greater. And in order to do that, we have to know that we're drawing on an energy that is greater than ourselves and beyond this physical body. So when I thought of boundless form, um, I thought of the form that exists prior to this physical form that we take on. And I think many of us are probably considering what that form is or what that form could be. All right, I'll jump into the chat because I could keep going on and on about this because I had a lot of thought, but also a lot of reflection and yeah, on the idea of boundless form. Safta Ahava said, I had an awesome strong. I was able to work on my personal space and remove a lot of symbolisms from my past that allowed and refresh my space. Yes. Refreshing the space is so important. Environment is definitely key. It's a reflection too of what is also happening internally. And many times I also have to remember that because sometimes I like to have multiple things going on, like multiple projects or multiple, what is art, or I'm making something and I have 3 steps of 3 different things, or just sitting one here, one there, and the other one there. And so it's really important that we go back and we're able to refresh our space constantly. And you speak about removing of a lot of symbols. Um, yeah, I myself, I really, I think about all of the different cultural symbols, and I used to have lots of different symbols around, and not from a ritualistic space or place, but we have to understand, like the value of symbols and how they're connected to ritual. Even if we're not doing ritual, we kind of are because we're pulling on an energy, or we're pulling on an energy, right? Because symbols carry so much. But downsizing and removing what does not reflect the culture that I'm living now is really important, and it lightens up the space, right? It lightens up the space. It lightens me up. I don't like wonder, well, what was I thinking when I got this thing? I don't have to think about it anymore. It's no longer here, right? So yeah. But having an ordered space as well that is a reflection of even our current walk and journey is crucial too, because it helps to it feeds back into us. It feeds back into us. You look around and you're like, yeah, this looks like all of the things that I embrace now, and the life and the journey that I'm living now, everything in my environment is a reflection of that. That is it. You feel confident. It's a booster. It's a confident booster. It's a confident. I also there was some. I'm just remembering this as I said that there was some. I think I was listening to a TEDx talk which shared a little bit about the way, like how the brain is enhanced, and it's enhanced based on the environment, right? And so I think it's critical to think about how environment influences brain function, and, even how we emote as well, too. Master Menelik says, my strong went well. I've been reflecting on things I may not need anymore, and the things we take on as a coping mechanism for certain periods in life. What an interesting thread. Whoa. Okay, and I say that because Safta Ahava's her response is very similar in that she too spoke about like removing, um and I know that's not what you said, but it's almost like they fit into a category of because we lean on different things, different symbolisms, but also different habits and behaviors as coping mechanisms. Um, and so removing those become an important part of moving forward, right? And changing and moving forward. Hold on, I think I'm moving too fast. All right, so thank you. Thank you. Reflecting on things you may not need anymore. Yeah. It just becomes clutter. It becomes clutter because it doesn't have value anymore. It doesn't have value anymore. It doesn't have function. And I am a stern believer in function. Form is important too, Everybody likes the aesthetics of things, but if you're saying, these things were coping mechanisms, it was mainly because of their function. And if they don't serve anymore, then we must remove them. Or it just becomes like a hoarder, becomes has anybody ever really read and into the details of what it means to be OCD. I'm just, it's not curiosity. I'm interested in I'm just interested in if anyone, whether anyone has indeed read on it and have identified some of those behaviors in themselves or anyone, and just um, wondered, how did this thing become? How did OCD become such a thing and become identified as like I said, disease? Because like some of the things that people do as coping mechanisms, I think I've observed everyone around me in my life, even now, doing some form of those things. So I had to say, I reread coping mechanism, and it instantly brought forward that thought. Instantly brought forward that thought. And, I just wanted to share, this is an open fellowship and build. It is really to create bonding and, strengthen community through shared experiences. And this is one. So, feel free to laugh and be light as we enter into the Sabbath space and time, but also, feed each other and inspire each other in the chat as well too. Top tier speaker says, my strong flowed. I thought a lot about trust and its relationship to our faith. I'm seeing more how our lack of trust can affect our faith, therefore interfering with purposeful movement. Yeah, lack of trust would can lock us down. Lack of trust can lock us down. And make us stagnant too, you know. And when I say make us, you're choosing. So if we choose to, you know, hold on to this idea of having a lack of trust, we perpetuate a cycle of being stagnant and being crystallized, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because there's always this doubt. I think we spoke a little bit or touched a little bit on this um as we spoke about purpose and being hardwired for purpose, you know. But I'm glad you got some time to think about trust, and trust issues. I think in one form or the other, I'm not saying we all do, but in one form or the other, I've heard a lot of people around me consider or think about or share rather um, about their struggle with trust issues. And I will say I have had my own struggle with trust issues too. Yeah. Yeah, it locks you, it puts you on lockdown. There's also fear and anxiety that can sometimes lead to and fear leading to panic sometimes. So, you know, yeah, I think it's you are all sharing a lot of, I think the things that you're sharing are directly connected to each other, because I'm just looking at your idea of seeing how a lack of trust can affect your faith, our faith. And again, that's an old limiting belief, right? That you can't trust anyone, or you can't trust an experience or anything, you know? Yeah. And so it falls in line with Menelek's point about, thinking about things that he may not need anymore, coping mechanisms that he may not need anymore, right? Falls in line and connects with, and let me know if you all can hear me, because for some reason my voice lowered a little. Um, but it also connects with Safta Ahava's removal of symbols from the past, right? And refreshing her space. So that's refreshing her space is connected to refreshing, our minds, refreshing our behaviors, our patterns, and the things that we do. So we're functioning from a space where we're open to this boundless form and this boundless potential of growing and transforming. Ra says, my strong has been well. Something I thought of was being able to not only know but utilize the different forms you may possess. Utilize. Can you share a little bit more? Can you dig a little bit more into what you mean? What do you mean when you say utilize different forms that we may possess? What are some of those forms that you're speaking about? Menelik says, oh, Master Menelik says, oh, whoa, just seeing your comments after Arlene. Same here. Yeah. More thoughts than external symbols. Right. Right. Ramik says, during this strong, I too reflected on name, meaning, and purpose a lot. I also thought on time wasted in the past with non purposeful movement, jobs, and relationships. If I had a penny, if I had a dollar for every single time wasted and every single thought about time wasted in the past on specifically non-purposeful movement, let's just say I'll probably be making it rain right now. It's crazy. Yeah, yeah. When when there's no tying to or connected to community to drive that purpose, that righteous purpose, we elect to do things based off of selfishness. And I'm not saying you and your Your experience just brought that to the forefront of my mind, right? We elect to do what is, solely for our benefit, um, which is right. But in that instance, it does not lean on our connection to community, right? And in many ways, I think I shared how my strong went. Actually, I did that. That was the first thing I did. I think. um, that's the first thing I did. I shared first. I'm learning to, well, saying I'm learning, like, it's new, but that I, share first. But yeah, it's something sometimes that the time wasted is more than likely because we were not connected to purpose, and the moves that we were making were not purpose driven, based on community, and community standards, and so on. We're just going off of, what you see here, what you see over there. Or maybe in the past we invested in some of the so-called community leaders that Chief shared and spoke on. You know, I think it was not, it was, yeah, y'all help me with it. I think it was, I have to look down to now find it. Not the most recent or the most current podcast from this strong, but the previous one where he spoke on, just ish hitting the fan, and, you know, people's lives and their journey falling apart because of, like what they invested in. These are not his words exactly, but what I pulled from the that podcast was, there are several people who are in under scrutiny right now, and that's like those things are being made public, and I'm pretty sure many of us have some of us have aligned with some of those characters in one way or the other, or considered aligning with one of those characters or the other. Because I will say, when I heard the whole, we're building schools, so I was like, what? Let me sign up. That will be amazing. Uh, yeah, but I knew better within the space of, like a month or two. So sometimes we align with those who are not necessarily authentic, or really thinking about communal drive, or building community, and so it's selfish, and then we end up investing in something that has like a selfish agenda, and not necessarily something that would benefit community, or is built on a standard even, so we get stuck. We get stuck. Top tier speakers asked a question, Safta Ahava. Have you checked out the Commander Day on Symbols? Yeah, the Commander Day on Symbols was a really good breakdown too. And Chief actually walks us through I would say a mini visualization. Um, so that was really good. Anu Radio says, this strong, I experienced a lot of physical changes. I reflected on how going through a transformation can change you physically. Something I didn't even take time to consider. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Transformation can, I mean, anytime anyone says transformation, even when Yakira Eden said transformation last night. And by the way, if you did not get an opportunity to go to join us on that breakdown, it was a phenomenal breakdown. Go back to the Enlightenment and Transformation channel and look for Maleficent Part 2. And you could check out Maleficent Part 1 too. That was, that was good too, you know. But she did a great breakdown, and there was a one theme that I think was just consistently driving forward. It was like literally pushing itself up into the forefront was transformation. And every time I hear the word transformation, I think about the story of Oshun, one that I remember Chief sharing a while ago, but like Oshun being a representation of that phoenix. So in her original state, she's beautiful, she's earthbound, and um, decides to save her community. And I'm again paraphrasing, not repeating the story word for word. So forgive me if I get parts off. But she decided to fly into the heavens and to sacrifice herself so that she would save, I think it was humanity or her community. In doing so, as she flew closer and closer to the sun burned off her beautiful exterior, revealing, like changing her and turning her into something else, right? Something different. So that, like that's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of the physical cage or the physical that we may have. And that transformation brought forward a physically different Oshun or the physically different energy. And it's just a story, but there's a lot that we can get from that because it's indicative of the fact that there is a physical change that happens. Anything that's happening on the physical and the outer and on the body is only a symbolic representation or clue into the changes and the transformation that's happening internally. So yeah, I definitely think when you see that you are having physical changes or things are happening, um, and they're visible, it's because it's alerting you, right? And the body functions that way. It's alerting you to what is happening on other realities for you, right? In the spiritual realm as well. Mentally, what is your state? What's happening with the mind as well? Those things are um, those. I think those are connections that we can't ignore. And I tied right back to Safta Ahava's point about refreshing her space because even our space is a physical representation of us. Like Chief teaches us, who teaches us that the house is a representation of our minds, how our homes are set up, how it's kept. It's a representation of our minds, and I mean, of course, some things have different symbolism for us. So I think that's, I think that's important too. But they're just these layers and layers and layers that we affect. Hence the idea of boundless form. Because like imagine seeing ripples. If I'm losing you, I'll tell me because I don't imagine ripples being formed in on the surface of water, but you are not able to see where those ripples are coming from, what's generating the ripple. But you do notice that as the wave and the ripple crosses the surface of the water, even water to the farthest reaches of the pond or lake or the body of water that you're observing begins to also become affected by it. So there is a reverberation that extends outward from the internal all the way, physical body, but also aura and space. That's why you could come in a grumpy mood and you just you know change people vibes and just now everybody grumpy. you know um yeah, so I definitely think that that's a crucial observation to consider. And I'm glad that you were able to, like put those parts together put those parts together. Make it rain on Sabbath. Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you. All right. She's fine. It was a pataki. That's correct. That is correct. That is correct. It was very much relatable. Very, very, very much relatable. Very much relatable. So another example of boundless potential, and I'm connecting boundless potential to boundless form because indeed there's a boundless form that um, is a pre-existing energy to the potential or the boundless potential that we have or is given to us. And so the darkness in the this is from grasping the root. I think I I made a mistake earlier and I said that I was pulling from 14 keys. So if I did, I apologize because I can't exactly remember if I made that mistake because I had 14 keys on my mind all day today. So if I said that was my reference, that was inaccurate. The reference is actually grasping the root of divine power. And so another example of that um, tying to or connecting to boundless potential is that of the darkness. The darkness holds the boundless potential of what could be, but also serves as the holder of the mystery of what will be. So there is the could be, the potential of what could be, but it also holds the mystery of what will be. Ah. So listen, when we think we control everything in our space and everything that we're experiencing, and we realize that indeed we are not. When we think we could see everything, uh, indeed you cannot. Because even the darkness holds this dual, right? This duality of the potential, but also what will, right? The fate. So it's the potential and the fate all wrapped up. And you probably say, well, why, like why this on Sabbath? Because it helps us to pull all the way back and realize that we're walking and we are making decisions, but at the same time we cannot walk and make decisions without realizing that the earth is the most high's. The statement is the phrase is the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So when we move and function, we have to move and function um knowing that, we're not just this physical form, and the way we move and function is based off of the Most High, or should be based off of the Most High, and that standard that was set for us. But even when it comes to moving and making decisions, that boundless potential, I guess it's like when you're standing at the edge of where the light hits something and you're looking ahead, but you can't really see anything. But you begin to think about all the what ifs, right? Sometimes the what ifs gets us in trouble. But there's a knowing that we also have to have that, moving forward, it there's the potential for this to be, and there's also what it will be, right? And sometimes the things we do may not affect it. May not affect it. Safta Ahava says, I haven't checked out the Commander Day on symbols yet, but I will, Tula. All right, yes. The Commander Day on symbols is very, very powerful. If anyone was able to find that link to the Commander Day, it would be greatly appreciated if you put it in the chat. I'll also add it to the description. We have a couple of links in the description to this video, but sometimes we make reference to things during the conversation, and those are added after. So that one will be added after. All right. So what before we move on, I wanted your take on the idea of connecting boundless potential to boundless form. And what are your thoughts? What comes to mind when you hear the darkness holds the boundless potential of what could be, but also serves as the holder of the mystery of what will be? What are some of your thoughts? And again, I know this is um, it's almost Sabbath, and we're all prepping and winding down. At the same time, it would be beautiful if we could, continue to connect in this way. Sometimes it's the only way we have to um, feed each other, support each other, and sometimes it's the only time we have to, just build freely, in this space. So take the opportunity. And Anu Radio says the soul comes to mind. How does the soul come to mind? And I didn't forget, Brother Ramik. I think I asked about was it Ra, Brother Ra, about expounding more on how, what those different forms that we should utilize are. What are those different forms that you're speaking on? And Anu Radio, can you expound a little bit more? How about this? I am going to drop the invitation in the chat. I'm going to copy paste it and put it in the chat, and just invite those of you who are here and sharing in the space. Invite you to come on into the stream, live and alive with Sister Maria, with Anu Life Global. And just share some of your thoughts. Maybe you want to share a little bit about how your strong went. What did you receive from our midday affirmative? What did you receive from the most recent podcast that she shared? Devil did evil. Yeah, that was okay. There are a couple of you jumping in. Give me 1 second. Bavakasha Safta, I thought you might be interested if you haven't listened yet. So many gems. Yes. Indeed. Give thanks for that, Talk to your speakers for that reference. Sister Yafi says, when I hear Boundless, I think infinite and free. We can't see in the dark, so there can be anything in the space. It doesn't take shape until the light hits it. This is true. It does not take shape until light hits it. When you think about that example in grasping the root of divine power, where, and I said it earlier, where that boundless potential exists in the sperm, and then you speak about the fact that we can't see in the dark, so there can be anything in the space. The dark possesses two things. It is that that potential of what it could be, and then there is the mystery of what it will be, and that's dictated by the light. That's the truth. It's dictated by the light. So I just found it interesting. Well, not interesting. I'm sure you all have read through this part of Grasping the Root over and over and over again, and visualize that sperm in the womb, right? Or the darkness of the womb, to actually, those two things actually bringing forward more than just potential, but now bringing forward a form Peace, greetings, Master Manila. Can you all see Master Manila?
Peace.
Yes?
Peace, peace.
All right. Welcome to the
Can I be
space.
heard?
I can hear you. Let me see if everyone else can.
Okay. This is the first time I did the cameo thing. I usually come in from the start.
Right. Well, that's a good thing. Okay, we have a yes. We do.
Yeah,
We have
see
a
a
yes.
couple of yeses in the chat. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, everyone can see and hear me. Peace, everyone. I could you repeat the question, Sister Maria? Make sure we'll talk about
Oh,
something.
so no, I was asking what, like what were our thoughts for us to all share? What are the thoughts or your thoughts on the fact that the darkness holds the boundless potential of what could be, but also serves as the holder of the mystery of what will be?
Okay. It makes me think of just potential energy versus kinetic energy. So you have potential energy, which is like, um, it makes me think of, it's funny, you brought up 14 keys earlier, and it made me think of the pairing of Kuumba and order, right? Kuumba is creativity. And when you have Kuumba, um, you have like everything is like she described it as like rapidly moving energy. Like you have to like not wrestle it down, but you have to contain it and slow it down in order to solidify it. Like you may have almost like making a cake. You may have your water and your flour and you're mixing it up, but it's not solid enough that it's still running. So you gotta add more flour and add more flour. Like you gotta make it dense. You know what I mean? So like you have that infinite potential there, but you need that liquid light to like slow it down and condense it into like a solid form. So like this is what you're gonna be. This is the information and the blueprint that you're gonna use to build your physical body. That physical body is gonna help you to do what you need to do while you're walking the planet. You know, so it's like a tool that serves you instead of the other way around. But it's a living thing with its own urges. So you have to like integrate that into your movements so that it doesn't like it's not always at odds with you and what it is you're doing, but it's like assisting you. Like having a wild horse that you have to sort of tame in order to ride it. You're trying to ride a wild horse and it's constantly trying to throw you off at random times.
Yeah, I see. Sister Yafi says, so light received must be righteous, so that what is shaped is not malformed.
Mm-hmm.
What is malformed? What is not? What is shaped is not malformed. Sorry. Right. Yeah. When you brought up the example of the horse, like controlling that horse, it just reminds me of chaos, right? And I think that, well, that's what you're speaking of when you speak of, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea of creativity. It is that chaotic energy with no bounds, no order, no structure to it at all.
Right, that's right. But the Chief also teaches us that the wild things are the strongest things. So there's like a trade-off. Like you may tame it, but it is slightly weaker because it's not like lashing out with all its strength. It's like a sort of temperance to it now. So I could still throw a punch, but it's more controlled and directed. So now it's like Neo in the Matrix, where he's like he when he was still plugged in, he had the potential to be turned into an agent. And it wasn't until he was, pulled out of that system that he could exercise a different sort of strength. But he had to go through a period of weakness first, where he had to build his muscle, like break all his muscles down, all of his physical muscle memory down, what he thought he had, but he never, like Morpheus said, he's like, why do my eyes hurt? And Morpheus is like, because you never used them before. And it's the same with your spiritual gifts. and like your spiritual, like your consciousness. Like you can't really expect to like hear a lecture, or like you said, like you can't just hold certain, like take that away from people. You know, the fact that they can ascend too. You can't take that away from people because you read a book. You know, that book doesn't give you everything. Like it may have started you on your journey, but starting your journey and acquainting yourself with someone who's been on the journey for years or decades is not wise. You know, it should teach you humility. You know, like that, like he wasn't talking tough on the table, like when he couldn't move his arms and limbs because he didn't have any muscles. You know, he
Right.
was like, "What's going on?" You know, he was asking questions like, "Why do my eyes hurt? Why can't I move? Like, what are you doing?" You know, and he was still like slurring and everything. He was still weak,
Right.
but that chaos being brought into order is sort of like that. You have to realize that it's not gonna go all over the place now, but the directive has to be there, like Sister Yafe says. The light has to be righteous now.
Right. And you know, as she says righteous, it makes me think of righteous being of benefit, right? And a benefit to that person. And yes, I'm saying person, but also the person who's connected to a community. So it's not just, you know, selfish, right? And the ordering and the structuring is focused and purpose driven and not toward selfish gain or personal gain. And as I say that, I think of the Ish Hits the Fan podcast again, and how we see the fall of some of these, you know, like supposed community uh, people.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say leaders, but community
Mm-hmm.
people.
That's their word.
Right.
They call themselves leaders.
Right. They call themselves leaders, but because you know some of that ordering or structuring was very, you know, very selfish in a sense. Very selfish. And there's a couple other people. It's after Arlene. Ahava. I seen Arlene and I seen Arlene, but it's Ahava. I like the example of the cake, like Ahoti Yafi stated. If you don't add the righteous light, the cake won't come out of righteous. Won't come. Oh, it won't come out righteous. Right. Yeah. If it doesn't have that light, it'll fall flat, pretty much. If you're baking a cake, you want it to, you know, I guess rise. Yes. Top tier speaker says, make sure the shape is not malformed. Reminds of the Sumerian creation stories where Enki was experimenting, trying to make the right combination.
Yeah, and you had all these malformed humans walking around. Like some of them couldn't. Like they were creative with the story, though. I gotta say, like it was real. It was real descriptive. You know, some didn't have male parts, which was like, what did you do? You know? But yeah, just waking up malformed.
Right.
It's a horrifying feeling. You know, you can imagine waking up and your hands are where your feet should be. Like, what do I do? Like, this is my life now.
Right.
You know, but that's a key point that Chief had made during it's like a Q&A session when we had our like a previous cohort that Chief did. Like we were doing recruitment, and Chief did a previous cohort where he was talking about, you know, what we do, you know, as Anu. And one of the things he was talking about was reformation. You know, recognizing that living in this part of the world, you know, under this type of culture, you grow up, and as you grow up in a system, you're malformed, and then you may look and realize that you've been malformed, and then you recognize the need to reform, right? And be reformed into what you were originally meant to be. And it's sort of like that too. Like you could look back and realize, or like he would mention in the Islamic piece where the Most High studied itself. and then it started creating the world. You look at yourself and you realize I'm not, I'm not reflecting that boundless energy. I'm not reflecting that boundless potential that I have to be what I'm meant to be. Because I could have been anything on that side, but now here I am walking the planet. I, I have a purpose commission. Like I'm supposed to be this. That's the realm of being boundless and infinite. And
Right.
over here, I'm taking that boundless and infinite energy and focusing it into like a singular stream, that may do many multiple things, but this is what I'm here to do. And my community helps me because my community also recognizes that same source. I think you mentioned like the celestial ember earlier.
Right.
Yeah, so it's sort of like that. But
The
I could get off. I know the room is filling.
oh yeah, I'm doing it if you're, I'm thinking you're here for the long haul and you're here. But thank
I
you
mean,
because
it's whatever. I don't want to hog up the seat.
no, right. Well, there are other people who have the link. Did the link come through? Because if it did not, that no, it
Mm-hmm.
did. It
No, I
did. So
clicked it.
yeah. Oh, you did. All right. Great. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Those of you who are sharing, typing, stop typing and come on here. Stop typing and
Yeah,
come
I
on.
mean, we gotta
Come
realize that
on.
we only on the internet because we ain't in the same room. If we were in the same room, it wouldn't been like just one person talking. Everybody
True.
could pop in. It's like, oh, that makes me think of, all right,
Yeah.
cool. What does your boundless potential expressing itself in the singular body say about this topic? Because I can only share my piece.
You're right. This is true. What else I could say? But this is true.
Yeah.
This is, when we talk about even the boundless potential, I know there's so many things like you see. I read it and there's a visual that I get, and sometimes I get stuck on the visual. Um, but there's a part in grasping the root that actually speaks about where the soul ends and where the soul begins, and I think it's where the soul begins is where the nervous system ends. You
Oh,
know,
right, right. Yeah.
right. So when it comes to the idea of even boundless potential, it is beyond just the physical form. Here we speak about the examples of the womb being that darkness and the light of the man, but at the same time, I keep thinking about when you zoom out on a picture and you keep pulling back and pulling back and pulling back, that pull back actually helps you to see where that potential comes from. Like
Right,
we're not
right.
generating it. It's from elsewhere.
I keep like anytime. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sir.
No, anytime someone brings up an example like that, my mind goes to Powers of 10. Powers of 10 was like a IBM sort of video that came out in the 80s. I spoke about this like at least 6 times on a live.
Oh,
I always bring it up whenever I hear because the video is so cool. Like I think every 10 seconds the camera zooms out by a power of 10. So like it starts off like looking at a couple having a picnic in the park, and it just keeps zooming out and zooming out and zooming out. And by the time a minute has gone by, like it zoom out like to the power of 10, like whatever it is. I think it's like 100 meters to the power of 10. So you're looking at galaxies and stars and the Milky Way, and then it zooms out to where the Milky Way you can't even see like where it fits with the rest of the stars, and then it's just like the edge of what he says is the edge of the known universe. That's as far as we could have seen at that time. I'm interested in knowing like what it would look like if someone does that again, like with current information. Yeah, I think that would be cool. But yeah, when you said you keep zooming out, you see it more and more, and it gets to that boundless thing. And then they do something else that's cool, like they go back to the starting point, and then they start zooming in by powers of 10. It's like, do yourself a favor, watch it.
the
like I always geek out over that video.
So there's this, the newest, I guess the newest preoccupation is with the micro cameras. How you talk about zooming in and going in. So they are these micro cameras that take pictures, and they'll show you a picture of just some random looking glob or a pattern, and you think it's a glob, but it's not, because once they start doing the zooming out, you get to see, oh no, it's the skin of a beetle, or the,
Mm-hmm.
the backside of a flower petal, or something, like something like that. And I can't stop thinking about how these patterns are repeated. The
Right.
pattern of the nervous system is very profound. It's always there. There's something always looks like connective tissue every single time. I can, very, very, I think that's interesting. And I think when I don't know how it connects to the conversation, but
But we
I,
talking about boundless potential, right? Like, how does it? I was actually thinking about this when I think I was walking home, um, sometime this strong, and I was watching, like, there were two young boys walking in the distance. One was he was like, sure. I was thinking about physiognomy and body shape and things like that. The chief brings up physiognomy a lot, and with drawing you have to learn anatomy, and everyone's anatomy is kind of different. So you get to learn like different shapes of people. And the younger one, I mean, I can't. I assume he was younger because he was shorter, but is a melanated um, young male, and then it was a non-melanated young male. Let's say,
okay,
and like they were like complementary. One was real tall, and he had long hair, long blonde hair, and he had like a real slow, smooth gait. And then the other one, the melanated one, he was shorter. His head was a little smaller, and his arms looked a little long compared to his body. Like
okay.
he's a little wider, and he was moving like fast. Like he had all the energy. And I was like, okay, it's like some people, like their body has a lot of energy. Like how do you work that translation? It's almost like hearing a different language, and you're like, I know what you say, it means something, but I don't know what it means.
It
you
means
know? But yeah, just how they were moving, I was fascinated. It's like, okay, so I got a body. Like, what does this body represent? It's like, if I'm looking at all of this stuff, and you did think about Chief segment on Maya, like all of this stuff is just appearance. Even the fact that my foot is touching the ground and I got resistance, and like, if it wasn't for certain forces, I would sink through the ground. Like, all of this stuff is, I it's in effect, at the same time, and it's so harmonious that it's almost inconspicuous. I don't know, just like what you were saying about the backside of the flower, and you zoom in, and it's like you could still see patterns repeating. Like, there's a lot more design going on here than sometimes we stop to appreciate. And it speaks to that boundless energy. All of this energy is expressing itself in different ways, and it has different containers, like the warm or that darkness being a different container for a certain energy. And you can see it form. It's cool to me, like how things just form, you know.
Yeah, and speaking about those repeated patterns, consistently in from the smallest to the largest, when you see that, yeah, you could label it as a scientific, but then it brings us right back to Psalm 29. Everything, you know, everything on the planet is the laws and the fullness thereof. I can't, you keep thinking about it, and it always comes back to, or connects back to, this idea of having source, of being connected to source. And Chief always says, like, it's what we see is the evidence, right? It's the evidence. It's not necessarily the most high, but it is the evidence. And you can't ignore evidence that is not just looking at something and saying, oh wow, these things are present here. But as you said, they're present, but now look at all of the consistent patterns that are repeated in all of these different forms, you know? And I think about the idea of the golden ratio and the spiral, and how that connects to boundless potential. Because when you think about it, it's like, and I think people, design staircases and all of that out of it. I'm like, it's, yeah, but you're still putting in a cage, because it still has to, that staircase still has to be housed in something. But what about the potential of a shell that could keep going, and possibly, that spiral extends, and it just keeps extending and keeps extending. I don't know. We move from one conversation into,
We're flowing. Right? We're flowing.
we're flowing. We're
Yeah,
flowing.
but you could even be like, I don't want to bring more nerd stuff, but a question you could ask is like, well, does the shell ever stop? Like where's the end of the shell? Because that fractal continues, but it gets like it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, to where you may not be able to see the growth, but it's still growing. You know, like it doesn't get to the size that it is, and then the second you see it, it stops growing. You know, it may like it may alter this growth process a little bit, because you look at it. You want to give you when children become self-aware, like you can't do it to toddlers. You look at a toddler and they just keep doing what they're doing. But after children become like self-aware and a little bit too self-conscious based on the way you raise them, what you encourage them to do. Like you look at some of them and they'll freeze, and they're like, okay, they still looking. You're like, they don't want to look at you. Look at it.
Yes.
She still looking. You might have left the room, but they don't want to turn around. Like I used to have that experience. I remember that. I would just freeze. Like, don't let them see you doing nothing. They might see something wrong, and like because you do stuff like naturally. You do stuff freely, and you may not know it's wrong until someone says stop. Don't do that. That's wrong. And then the next time you go to do it, you might have an urge to do it, and then you think about it, it's like, okay, but they said not to do it. Like, and it's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, is it still, does it make a sound? It's like, okay, if I do this thing and my parents don't see me, is it still wrong? You start tucking that away in your psyche, and it just grows and festers. Like, hi, my parents didn't see me get drunk, so as long as I could sit through Sunday service without falling asleep, then it wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm. you know, yeah, it's two things. If they're, I guess, if they're preteens, they're actually annoyed that you're looking at them. So it's like, stop looking.
Right.
And at a certain age, it is that, so they're um, become so self-conscious. And also, like, somebody probably has said don't do this before, so anything they're doing, it's like, okay, well, should I be doing this thing?
Right. Especially if you have like conflicting stories. One person says don't do it, and the other person, who's also older, they're like, oh, you could do that. So it's like even the serpent all over again. Like we always say, like, she's so dumb, but we do it every day. We do it every day.
True. This is true. This
Yeah,
is
man. That's what. I'm sorry. It was a lag. I didn't see you were about to make a point.
Oh no, well, I don't know if it's a point. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's very easy to be on the outside looking in, or looking at, or through the window, and saying this is what it is, or judging another, as opposed to judging self, and being able to see that we do the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
When you spoke about the variations in the young men, it went back to the conversation on the midday affirmative, which was, some of what we got into was the importance of, also, like, how some traditions and cultures they utilize ritual to identify what these attributes and these skills and these talents are, of use. And they pay, and I've heard she say this too, even in our own private bills, like that ritual can just be observation. Like it's literally you paying attention to what that child comes with. And yes, it's the gait and the height and all of that is it's the physical components, but it adds, and no buts, it adds to them fulfilling purpose. In many ways, there are components or things about ourselves, whether it's weird, awkward, whatever, but it helps to feed or support us toward fulfilling purpose. And you spoke about the non-melanated young man being tall, and it took me right back to today. There is this huge young man in the school he is huge. I don't even know. I don't know. Maybe he's a walking Nephilim. I don't know, but he is. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh my goodness, where did you come from? Who created you? What created you? Because
Yeah.
he looks like a big old giant, and it is awkward. And it's funny because there's three of them, and each of them are a representation of different ethnicities in the entire building. There is
Wow.
no, yeah, seriously. I don't know what that's
Can
about,
you
but
get like a
that's
ballpark? Like a ballpark of the height?
why am I sideways all of a sudden? I'm not sure. Are you all seeing me sideways?
Yeah, we can see.
Really? What's going on?
Uh-oh, now you're upside down. I getting dizzy.
That better.
There we go.
Am I right side up now?
There we go.
What that
Yeah,
was?
give me
Okay.
vertigo.
Okay.
um, that's really interesting. I met one of them before, like someone real huge for his age, and he was like 6'5" or 6'6", like just huge for no reason. And but it came at a cost. That's another thing. Like there's even strengths and weaknesses to the types of containers we choose. And I think he had like a blood sugar issue. Like he had to eat a lot in order to, if he doesn't eat a certain amount, he will faint. And I was working like this is one of my previous jobs, and he was in the store, and his like we were just talking about how tall he was for no reason, and we started talking about what the customer came for, who was his mother. He was just with his mother. I think he's like 16 at that height, and his mother was. We were talking, and he started like swaying back and forth, and he actually like started to faint, like fall over. And it's like, what's wrong? And we called the ambulance and everything. She was like, oh, if he doesn't eat enough, he has fainting spells. We did not CPR, but he was like just lightheaded. Like he was fine. But they called the ambulance anyway. But like after he caught himself, we got him some water, let him sit down. And she was like, what did you eat? Oh, I had some ramen noodles. And she got pissed. So you're supposed to eat more than that. You're already big as hell. It's like, but your body even dictates how you move. Like you driving like a Hummer, you would drive it differently than you would drive a Prius.
This
You
is
know,
true.
and that kind of that speaks to a lot of this talk about we're all the same, or we all function the same way, or we all need the same thing. It's like we're the same on that side, where you have that boundless potential, and everything is everything and nothing at the same time. But over here, this is the realm of separation. Like you can't tell me one thing is another thing because it's not designed to be that thing. Like my body is shaped this way for a reason. You think all of a sudden it's just wrong, and then you try to retcon history. Like maybe it was wrong back then, but the science didn't catch up. But we advanced now, so you know our advanced thinking and science can let us do this. It's like nah, this is a new thing. You try to make it seem like it's always been here.
I see what you mean. Uh, are we going back? So then, are we circling back to the malformations?
I mean, it's your show, it's your world. you know.
No, it just
You got a
I
new
said
challenger
that.
too. You got our new radio in the space.
Our new radio is in this. All right, okay, come on
In
in.
the house.
Add to the stream. Peace, greetings.
Peace, peace. You came out at the perfect time. My tablet's about to die.
Peace, peace to John, peace to Kotu Maria,
Peace,
peace everyone. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but kind of related to what you all were speaking about. You asked me a question about what I mean by soul, and surprisingly, the ramen noodles is kind of a connection. The ramen noodles kind of relates because soul is like truth, and it's the real authority. It's what everything comes from. So everything else is an illusion. So that's why Big Man was fainting, because he was eating an illusion, So yeah, it was just, that's what I meant by soul, just the primordial source, and it being the true authority in our lives.
I think it directly goes back to, thank you for coming on and sharing that and sharing your thoughts. See, that was not hard.
It kind of was, but it's okay.
Whatever.
Well, I commend your courage. Yeah, I don't even think I need to add on to it, like what you shared, in terms of the soul and this here being illusion in a sense, and the truth and the reality. But it goes back to that zooming out again, like zooming out to see, like, there is that one thing that connects us. So yes, we manifest in all these different forms: tall, high, low, Nephilim, not, but there, well, not those, but there is like a source feeding us. And it goes back to that statement the Gega always hear. She say, we're here to answer a question. We're here to answer a question. And so you think about the tools that we have, in order to answer that question. And the soul doesn't have those tools. The portion of soul that is ours, it doesn't have those tools, limbs, and the ability to ground ourselves to earth, to be able to, even consider or think or imagine or so what, that experience is.
Yeah, there's no other. That's the thing. You dealing with the soul, like there's no something else. It's everything at the same time. So there's no I can't have no hammer because I don't have no arm to hold it with. I don't have the nail to swing at. Like, we don't have that stuff. We don't. What they say in Black Panther, we don't do that here. It's not on this side. What you were talking about also made me think about a point on the devils. The Chief UA's most recent segment, and he had touched on one of the traits how you would know a devil is like a level of uncooperativeness. I'm not gonna do that. I've been messing up words all strong, but uncooperativeness, dealing with when you're dealing with them, like he gave an example, like he may give someone an instruction and they don't do it all the way, or they may do it halfway and like start doing their own thing, and then trying to tell him like why they did what he did not tell them to do. Like, I gave you instructions and I told you, like, do it this way, and you do it another way, and then it's messed up, and now you're trying to explain to him why you messed up. He's like, I don't want to hear why you messed up. Like, I told you the right way to do it, and you did it the wrong way. So why would I want to hear an incorrect process? Like, you're trying to give me your thoughts. You're trying to poison me with your thoughts, which is another devilish thing. There was actually a character in a show I was watching this strong, and she was a similar way. Like, her whole backstory is she was a people pleaser. Like she would, to a very twisted extent, like she would get off on pleasing people. You know, not in like a naked kind of way, but it was just I do this thing for you, and you say, "Oh, you're so dependable, or you're so nice, or you're so good at that," and they would be like they thrived on that, you know. So that became like they shifted their purpose from I'm doing this because it's my purpose to I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, you know, or I'm doing this because of that dopamine hit, and she was addicted to that, and every time someone gave it to her, it was less and less. So she had to do more favors for more people. And like Chief had said, like you do something for someone and they didn't ask you to do it, you know, it's almost like you're gonna resent them because you sought them out to do this thing for you. I mean for them. And you're doing it because you want like reciprocity, but it's not reciprocity because you're doing it because you want something back. You know, like if someone you can see someone's homeless on the street. They didn't ask you for nothing, and you go and give them a sandwich, and they might be comatose from I don't know days on end without sleep, and you're right there like at least you can say is thank you. You know, like you start resenting them. They didn't ask you for that, you know, and that's what she did, and eventually all of this resent started building up inside of her. So she actually made a blog to like just get all of the bile out of her system because she got everybody's business now. She's always the shoulder to lean on. Like she knows everyone's business, you know, and she starts putting it on this blog. She doesn't use names, but people found it and they started like, what's this? And in order to take the blame off herself, she does something really devilish and she starts blurting out everyone's business in the classroom. Who was cheating on who with who. And all of a sudden now all of the attention is off of her and there's confusion in the room. And she's loving this even more. You know, so you can see like how that devilishment came from something that wasn't like there was no integrity in what she was doing for people. It was purely self-serving. It just happened to be tied to service. You know. But yeah, like what you were saying about our tools and even sometimes the doubt we may have in what we're doing, like we have to find something else to latch onto, you know, other than the charge that we were given. You know, I'm doing it, like Chief would say, I'm doing this because I was told to do it. You know, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to, you know, and you have to learn even to negate it. Like, praise is a war tactic, you know, oh, you're so nice. You say, oh, you're really good at that. And then you say, thanks. And then a favor comes after, like, do you think you could? Nah. You're getting me with that one. I appreciate the compliment, you know, but you're not gonna compliment me your way into something free.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add really quickly, but that relates to true power coming from the soul. Because that's why, you know, she probably had to keep doing those things because it runs out after a while. But it also reminded me of Maleficent, too. Like, you know, we learn in spiritual training that the soul is seated in the heart and it's the will, you know. And when every time that what's her face Maleficent had to went through something like powerful, it came for that green energy came from her heart. And I think even though she was a demon, we're not going to use Maleficent like it's not real, but you know, that green energy, like that's the will, that's the soul, you know. So it just reminded me of all the things that we were building on this strong.
It's the yeah, but you know, someone's using the symbolism. Like they you know, as she said, it's like rituals in movies. You know, so somebody's using that symbolism with the intention, with an intention. You know, so I also think it's important for us to be able to see how they're using it and why. And I think one great point that was brought up over and over was the fact that, you know, Maleficent was not created for grown folk, but for young minds. You know, so it goes back to what are you trying to share with young minds? You know, I listened to I'm just gonna make a quick comment on the podcast. Like I listened to the podcast, and every time Chief gave an example of one of those things, like how you can tell a devil, I had to sit and say, okay, do I do this? Do I do that? And maybe the truth is, it isn't for us to sit and question, do I do this, do I do it, because we know already that there are components or parts of it that we do. And so now the question becomes, are we going to let that light that's being shone on us bring us to a place where we could see, okay, yeah, this is what's happening, but the reverse has to happen, or this has to change, or it has to be purged, or allow the light to refine it so that there can be improvement and development and growth. Because there are a couple of things you said, like lack of adaptability that he shared, rather. Lack of adaptability is a huge and major part. And when he said it, I went in, and that's resistance to change, right? And that may be changing in the moment, or maybe even resistance to transformation. And when I say changing in the moment, okay, I have to bring it back to an educator's perspective, because I will always be like, my mind is in the classroom all the time. I think about shifting between schedules, and there are students who are like, they'll walk into the room, and if they don't get the cue that we're now moving into science, their world falls apart. Like, completely falls apart. They don't know what to do with themselves. They don't have, if you didn't ding the bell, that's a problem. So they're depending on some kind of sound or cue or something for the shift and the change. And um, that shift and that change, they become so resistant to it because they're not getting a cueing system. So I'm saying that because I'm thinking of change in the moment, and not necessarily, when we say transformation, I think of like something that's long term, over time and gradual. But if we're shifting gears in the moment, are you shifting gears too? Or are you still stuck on what we were talking about like 5 minutes ago? And I think that connects with the flow of conversation, and how, like, we build as well too. But yeah, adaptability was one that stood out to me. Incomplete execution also stood out, as I think you shared one that stood out to me as well too, as I listened. And I have to go back and revisit and re-listen, because there was so much more. Um, yeah, there was so much more that was shared. And I also found that a point that stood out was the idea that what is melanin rich produces, you know, what seems to be the strongest for. Again, I'm not. This is not word for word. I have to keep saying that.
I remember him saying that, like, he would say the worst devil is a black devil,
Right.
because the devil was around, like the concept of a devil was around. I think he was making a distinction of it, because people think of devil or evil, and if you're melanin rich, because of our recent history, you would think that all the devils are white people,
Yeah.
and it said people try to make that distinction, like there are white devils and there are some melanated people who do devilish things.
Yeah.
As opposed to acknowledging devil was around you know, um, before the concept of white people. That concept of devil is real old, and even with I searched it up in the King James Bible, not the concept, but just the word, and the word devil only shows up in the New Testament, oddly enough. Everything before that was evil spirit.
Jerome.
Jerome.
Ooh, I'm missing the joke on Jerome.
Jerome is the one who he was one of the people who translated the Latin Vulgate. So he translated it from Greek and Hebrew into Latin. And that's where we get our templates of the Bible, like one of the earlier templates of the Bible. Good old Jerome, original player from the Himalayas.
Oh my goodness. So he. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that was the point you're making. Like, there's no worse devil than a black devil.
Yeah.
He also made the point to support that, like when he was getting into Palo, and he said that he had to learn all these bots, and he was like, all these bots, most of them were like for protection. It's like, what we need protection from, and obviously it's from each other,
Yeah.
and he said some people may say it's Willie Lynchism or whatever, but nah, these are from people on the continent. Like, you gotta protect yourself from the people who live around you. So it's not just we was all living together as one and holding hands, and then white people. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, and now black people don't like each other all of a sudden. It's like, nah, like, people are people, and melanated people can produce some of the strongest devils.
Yeah. It's yeah. So there's this book, 2000 Seasons, and I was actually just like going back and looking at some of the notes and stuff that I had from it, and you know, the way I think it's Crazy Arma is his name. The way he writes, he actually includes like different titles for groups of people. So they are the followers of the way, but then there are the predators, and then there's zombies, and then there, like he has those names and labels for different people, and it's clear that he's speaking about peoples on the continent, and of course the followers of the way, we know who those people were traversing.
Right. Well, what was the name of the book?
2000 Seasons.
2000 Seasons.
2000 Seasons.
Oh, like 2080, I guess.
Yeah, see, she's 2000 Seasons.
Okay. So
sorry.
See.
Top tier speaker says, I had a sister who would buy me things, and this is from your point earlier, I think. She says she had a sister who would buy her things and expect her to do her hair for free. And she says, if I would have known that was her intention from the beginning, I would have refused her gift.
Yeah. I'm very skeptical when people give me free stuff. It's like, I think it's in like 48 Laws of Power, like learn to hate, learn to despise the free lunch. Something like that. Someone could always hold it over your head. I learned that naturally because people used to do that a lot to me in primary school. And I used to always remember it. Like, you try to do something for me, and now all of a sudden you want some of my Lunchables. It's like, nah, it don't work like that. This is my cheese, it's my crackers, it's my sausages. I can't get none of this. Oh, you mean? Okay, so now it's manipulation. You do something nice because you want something, and you don't get it now, all of a sudden, I'm mean. All right. I'm hip to the game now. Back then, it used to hurt. That's similar to my comment. Similar to my comment earlier. Like, there are certain things like that bother us, and they bother us because of our level of development at that time. But we keep it. So you age, and you may even mature a little, but the thing is still there. Like, that kink is still in your mind. Like, this thing still bothers me. It still bugs me when I'm trying to eat a sandwich and someone's just looking. And I'm like, hell, just have some. So I don't have to go through the hassle of you asking me for it, and I'm gonna say no. And I guess, like, it's a small example, but there are certain things where we do compromise what we are. But like Chief would say, like, you're coming off of your throne. Like, he would say, stay as king. You shouldn't leave your throne because of the way that someone is approaching you. So that's what I was dealing with this strong. Even with when I was walking up the street, that's what I was building on mentally as well. Like, all right, these two walking up the street, like, they don't look like they have the same qualms that I may necessarily have. Like maybe they didn't, that wasn't their walk. And I started looking at the way they walk. Okay, this one's walking a lot faster, and this one's walking a lot smoother and slower, but they're still moving at the same speed. They just move in different ways, but they're matching each other like step for step because they're walking and talking. So that was interesting to me. But everybody walks their walk in like their own unique way, and you let someone come out of the blue like a devil, and they start doing devilish things, and all of a sudden you're questioning the way you've been walking the whole time. Sometimes it's warranted. Like it may take a second look, like, do I do that? But other times it's like, I remember Chief saying, I wouldn't have done that because I'm so in tune with my own philosophy. I know that's something that I wouldn't do. And it's like that's like the type of level that you should strive for. You're so keen on what's going on internally, and you're so connected, and it's such a part of you that nobody can like slander you, because only like a trader in your camp would believe slander from someone outside. Like how,
Right.
from Noah. But someone's got them arms inside us, like, but I want, Maya, I want this, I want that. But if something external can just sneak in and just whisper in, not like your physical ear, but something inside of you listens, something inside of you responds, then okay, I know where to attack this person. I tried to tickle the chest, tried to tickle the stomach, tried to tickle under the arm. Oh, it's their feet that's ticklish. Okay, I got you. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's from a, I guess, not I guess, it's from a place of, like you said, it's from a place of being able to manipulate the situation. So when you collecting, gathering information so you can, use it. All right. I know that already.
I'll jump off, but thank you for having me on. Peace.
You said you had something to say before you jumped off.
I did?
I don't know. I thought you.
I said peace. I said thank you for having me. No, I was saying peace.
Oh.
I was saying thank you for having me on.
I thought you had something.
All right.
Please give thanks on radio for coming on and being live and alive. Peace, Master Menelek. Thank you very much for being in the space and sharing. And for those of you who are still with us, we're going to close out. Thank you, top tier speakers. Thank you, Yafe, Safta Ahava, and Ramik. Who else was here? Ra. Brother Ra was also on. Thank you all for, and Sister Ima Yakira Eden. I think I saw her. I don't know. Briefly. But thank you all. Enjoy your Sabbath. This was a good build. I like that there was a lot of just sharing what your experience was like, what happened to you over the strong, and how you connected to the conversation on purpose, but also the. Sorry, you want to say something? Yeah, but also.
No, I saw Chief follow up in the chat, and I didn't want to hail him over you. I was just saying. I was saying peace, Chief, in my mind.
Peace, greetings, Chief. Greetings. Well, we're closing off, so rest well, everyone. But yeah, I'm glad that you all were able to come on and share and just talk about your own experience as well too, and what you pulled from the podcasts and all of the other bills that we have during the strong. Enjoy your Sabbath, everyone.
Peace. Give thanks, Sister Maria. Give thanks, all. Shabbat shalom.